Rockaways Productions presents The Casey Waters Show, Episode 222, Mirrormind, The Other Side of Me, and New Religion. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Waters. Today, it's Mirrormind, The Other Side of Me, and New Religion. Mirrormind is a concept which I came up with, similar to internalization, which I've discussed in the past. Here, we take a look at ourselves and see how we are like. Then, it's the other side of me. Here, I look at myself and what it means to be from the east side imaginary territories. Then, it's new religion. Here, I look at Christianity from a gnostic perspective. This section may be considered controversial by some Christians. I apologize in advance if I offend anyone. Today's show, well, if I have time later on in today's show, it will be The Cycle of Day and Night by Namkha Norbu. This book deals with the practice of Dzogchen, a form of Tibetan Buddhism. Today's show will feature background footage from Rumbling Bald, which is in Chimney Rock State Park. Rumbling Bald, well, it's some cliffs and boulders. I've been there several times in the past. To get there, take US 74A East out of Asheville. Go past Bat Cave, where I live, and continue on 74A East, going past Chimney Rock. As you enter the extreme west side of Lake Lure, take a left on Boys Camp Road, just before the bridge that crosses the Broad River. Follow Boys Camp Road. After about a third of a mile or so, the road splits, fork to the left, going uphill. After about another half a mile, you'll come to the crest of the hill. Take a left at the entrance to Chimney Rock State Park. There you would park your car. The trailhead is at the end of the parking lot, off to the right. Once you go down the trail about 100 or 200 yards, the trail splits. The short trail, well, the quickest route to the cliffs and the boulders, is to the left, which is also the steepest way up. If you stay to the right, it's a longer, gentler approach to the cliff and boulders. So, now it's time for Mirrormind, The Other Side of Me, and New Religion. Now it is time for Mirrormind, The Other Side of Me, and New Religion. Well, Mirrormind is a way of looking at yourself. The other side of me deals with how I see myself as part of the east side imaginary territory. New Religion deals with Christianity from a gnostic perspective. So, let's dive in. Here we go. Now it's time for Mirrormind. Mirrormind. The concept came to me, well, not came to me during the Madonna concert, but I guess several weeks afterwards. I remember when she did Vogue, she had several large mirrors on the stage. You know, full body-length mirrors with flashbulbs on them. Well, it looked cool with the flashbulbs going off along the side of the mirror. But then I thought, what happened if you turn the mirror onto yourself and you looked at yourself? This is similar to internalization. I have discussed internalization in the past on the Casey Waters Show. This is a concept I invented. So, we'll do internalization first. Well, that is when everything is coming to you. Well, I guess the easy way to look at internalization is to look at externalization. That is, the normal way you function. You function with you reaching out to the world and doing everything, interacting with everyone, creating a lot, performing a lot, loving a lot, learning a lot, and so on. But it's you reaching out to the world to do these things. But do you ever think of it in reverse? About all the things that you interact with coming back to you? When you look at something, it's you who looks at it. When you meet someone, it's you who are meeting them. When you learn something, it's you who are learning it. We're so used to dealing with the outside things around us, what we're learning, who we are meeting, and so on. But we never look at where these things originate from, in our mind, that is. See, everything is interacting with us. The people we meet, the things we work on, and so on. They're interacting with us, our flesh and blood body, and more specifically, our mind. So everything is coming back to our mind, to ourself. What is ourself? What is this that is interacting with everything? I can think about this only for a few seconds at a time. It is difficult to concentrate on this concept for very long, at least for me, thinking of everything coming back to myself and what myself really is. Anyway, similar to internalization is Mirrormind. We're looking at ourselves and we're reflecting on ourselves. Well, what's a good way to, quote, reflect on yourself? Why, clone yourself. That's right. Imagine the world filled with nobody but you. Millions and millions of people, but they're all you. Can you get along with yourself in that fashion, surrounded by, well, hundreds, maybe thousands, if not millions of you? Well, depending on whether you live in the city or out in the country. But whatever the case, whoever you deal with is you. Would you treat yourself fairly? Think about that. If you commonly take advantage of people, well, then you will take advantage of yourself, and you will not get far. You will be frustrated and upset in this imaginary world. However, if you treated people with respect, well, and integrity, well, then everything will be fine, and you would get along with yourself. So, you have to treat people with integrity, and you have to have the dignity not to let yourself be treated badly. You have to have the dignity not to allow yourself to be compromised. And you have to have the integrity not to compromise others. Treat others as you would want them to treat yourself. The golden rule. Anyway, so, this could be extended to the imaginary territories. Well, when you treat yourself fairly, well, in this imaginary world where you're full of your clones, well, if you treat yourself fairly then, and you don't compromise other people, you don't try to take advantage of them, well, then you're more from the east side. If you take advantage of other people, well, let's just think of the world in general, not cloning yourselves anymore. Well, when you take advantage of people, you're more from the west side. When you don't like to do that, you're more from the east side. Well, so if you work for the imaginary territories, let's say on the east side, promoting integrity and respect for others and not taking advantage of them and honesty, well then the imaginary territories works for you. So if you work for the east side imaginary territory, support the ideas of the east side imaginary territory, well then the imaginary territory itself will help you out, perhaps with inspiration, perhaps with ideas, and perhaps with reassurance, happiness, faith, and the like. Perhaps the ability to love others better, and so on. You get quite a lot from the imaginary territories. We just don't think about it much or recognize it. Anyway, so you work for the imaginary territory you're associated with. So if you like to deceive, you're more from the west side. And the deceptive west side imaginary territory will work for you and help you out in your deception. Well, maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. Things are a little complicated and tricky on the west side, I guess. And I'm not so familiar with that imaginary territory. Anyway, so, you have to think of your value systems. Because, well, the value systems are important. Well, why? Because your value system and who you associate with and why you associate with them determine how fast you age because of the influences that others have on you. And this affects the aging process. So you have to think of what you do and why. Are you trying to scam everyone you meet? Or are you trying to respect them and love them? And why do you associate with the people you associate with? What makes them special to you? What do you get out of them? What do they get out of you? How do you see them? And how do they see you? All of that affects how fast you age because these other people influence you. And how they influence you affects the aging process. So if you're annoying to them by trying to deceive them and rip them off constantly, well, they might do the same to you, which might make you age faster. However, if you respect people, love them, treat them fairly, and respect them, well, maybe they'll respect you and treat you with fairness, which may cause you to age slower and live longer. Well, of course, you look back at me, with G, already 51. Well, living it up with the high energy that is characteristic of me, my high metabolism, and my youthful vigor. Well, perhaps this is all from my value system. Perhaps it affects how I am and how I age. Well, I guess genetics is the rest. And, well, anyway. So, let's move along. So, another concept here is the aneurysmically content bubble. Well, aneurysmic is a word I invented way back when, back in my college days. It basically means holy, as in the sense of whole, incomplete. So you're complete unto yourself. So I guess aneurysmic is kind of a sense of completeness, of wholeness. So this aneurysmically content bubble, when you feel wholly content, when you're content with yourself and your situation, you have the freedom to move. You have the freedom to be creative. You have the freedom not to be bogged down in sad or upsetting emotions. However, when you're not content, the bubble bursts and you drag the bubble skin. The bubble skin is huge and heavy. It weighs you down, makes it almost impossible to do anything, it seems. Because you're not content, because you're frustrated. So you just focus on your frustration. And when you focus on your frustration, you don't focus on other things. Your scope is limited. That's why it's better to be content. When you're content, you have a wide focus, a wide scope, and it's easier to be creative and more productive. And it's easier to help out others, and so on. So we have to get our sense of being content, our sense of completeness and purpose, and that will bring about our being able to do more. Remember, you are already on the path, so to speak. If predestination holds, then you're doing what you're supposed to do. And you could take your life situation and use it to obtain enlightenment. That's what I mean by you're already on the path. You're already on the way to enlightenment. You just got to use your life situations to teach you. That's all. And learn from them. And improve yourself by helping others and improving other people's lives and other sentient beings. So, Mirrormind is living with oneself and trying to understand oneself from the concept of living with oneself. In the imaginary sense that you live with your clones. Can you get along with all your clones? Will they respect you? Will you respect them? Think about it. That's the mirror mind. But what's the other side of me? Let's jump over to that. The other side of me is you. Well, you see, I'm from the east side. And so the east side imaginary territories emphasize respecting other people and being honest and truthful with them. Having integrity with how you deal with people. Well, all of that requires you to understand people, to have empathy for them. On another show, I called this empathy Title 4. You have to have this Title 4 empathy. You have to have this strong sense of empathy to really feel what it is like to be someone else. So you'll know what it's like when they are cheated or deceived. You'll know how bad it affects them and what it causes them to do. So, we have to take this negative process of people being treated badly and them treating others badly and turn it into something positive by treating people with respect. And they, in turn, will treat other people with respect. A kind of chain reaction. So, the other side of me is you, as I try to help you and understand you. Often in a very indirect way, but sometimes in a direct way as well. That's what the East Side is about fairness and respect for all. So to have that, I have to think of you, of other people, and how they might be suffering, and how to improve their conditions. That's the other side of me, is you. And thinking of your needs, and how to help you live better. If we all think like this, we could all get along better. In a sense, the world would be turned upside down. Instead of a few corrupt, powerful people holding secrets that control others and deceive them, these secrets will be revealed, and the powerful people that hold these secrets will have their power removed from them and their influence taken away. Where would the power and influence go? Well, to the poorest people of all, the people with the most problems, the people that are the most common. They will rise up and rule, in theory, gaining the knowledge that once only a few people had, because they had power and money. Well, the resources and the power and the influence will just be distributed around to all, so all will understand, and everyone can help each other out. And in theory, life would be ruled from the bottom up, from the poor person's perspective, instead of the rich person's perspective. So instead of the rich person having all the power and influence, figuring out ways to get more and more money out of the poor people, so the poor people live a more miserable life, it would be the exact opposite, where everything's geared to making the poorer person have a better life. Well, that might drag other people, the few rich and powerful, towards the level of being poor, but by the time they got there, they'll be having fun, and would be treated fairly and with respect, because that's just how it works on the East Side, imaginary territories. Now it is time for New Religion. This section is dedicated to my sister Janet Howland, who passed away on November 29th, 2011, due to a mysterious drowning. She was going crazy. She was delusional. And, well, part of what might have made her delusional, well, might have been the upsetting concept of new religion. Well, new religion for her, old religion for me. Anyway, my sister has been an evangelical, born-again Christian for most of her life, from, let's say, around 24 years old up to her death, which she was 57. So, these tough conditions? Well, she was a born again Christian, and she was basically having fun. But things did become tough in the end as she discovered new religion. Well, what is this new religion? New religion for her, old religion for me, because it's always been my perspective ever since I was 14 or so. What is this perspective? The perspective that you need to be wary of the church. Apparently Matthew warned about this in the Gospels. We must be wary of the church, of the power and control they have over us, and what they are teaching and emphasizing, and if it's truly the right teaching and the right thing to be emphasized. We need to be constantly looking at all this. This is a very complicated thing. You don't hear this concept preached about in church, I'm assuming, hardly ever. This is controversial, perhaps even heretical. But it is my perspective. As I said, old religion for me. Kind of a gnostic perspective, where instead of the preacher, the priest, or the religious authority figure telling you how to think and what to believe, you discover what to think and what to believe on your own, from your own life, from your own experience, from your own interactions with people. That's the way to do it. At least that's the way I see it. People can learn to live a moral existence, even with limited guidance from outside, even with no religion at all introduced into their lives. Mankind, as a society, without religion, might naturally become moral. At least that's my theory, because they will be able to figure it out on their own. They will be able to know this, discover this, that it's better to treat others fairly than not to. It's better to love thy neighbor and treat them with respect than to be at war with them. And so it goes on and on. So I like the Gnostic independent perspective. This is upsetting to most churches, for it might seriously erode their power. Oh well. Anyway. So, for me, this is the way it's always been. But for my sister, she learned this only the last few months of her lives, and it was upsetting to her, realizing that she might have been deceived by her church, and that her priest, or preacher, rather, might not have always had her best interests at heart, or cared about her as much as she would want him to care about her. She discovered this. Well, or at least she thought she discovered this. She might have took it to an extreme, perhaps seeing her church as being more hateful and deceitful than it really was. Perhaps casting her preacher into too much of a negative light. You have to be careful with this new religion. You can't get carried away with it. You can't say everything's negative, that all the churches are negatives and the preachers are bad. No. You have to look at this in a little more, neutral and detached perspective. Try not to be carried away with your emotions or your personal history on this one. Just be aware that no church is perfect.
Casey Waters Show. Producer, Casey Waters. Graphic editing, Judson Laird. Please note our new email address, caseywaters2@caseywaters.com.